24, yes, possibly. What a auspicious number. No, I can't think of any culture that would have it as an auspicious number. No. So I was playing football with the lads from work, and we've got those yellow vests because we now have enough people that like we're playing five-a-side, and they've given them to me to wash, and I've washed them all. But I have loads and loads of patches left over from when I did the tank girl costume, little unicorns and like lipstick marks and things. And I'm absolutely going to start ironing those on, and they're going to get those back. We're going to look like the weirdest group. Everyone's going to have like a patch where there would usually be like a team logo of a unicorn or lipstick or a daiquiri or something.
It's like, no, you take the daiquiri off, Leelis. Your one has the lipstick on it.
I want death metal unicorn. I want the skull.
Actually, I was just thinking, I know you probably won't do it this year because Tank Girl herself is going to be there.
Yes.
So I assume you're going to dig out the costume again.
I'm not going to do Tank Girl again. I just have this image of me walking towards her and like looking up from signing someone else's DVD or something, and she looks up and just it's me walking towards her. She's like, security. But,
you should at least when you go to meet her have a photo of I actually won last year or whatever, like I got recognition last year for my costume of you. No, because I actually realized after you said it yesterday on the stream, I was like, you know, why don't you do, if you're gonna have the stall there again this year, go as Adam Jensen, and every time somebody comes up to buy a print, you hand them the print and they hand you the money, and you stop and look at it and go, I never asked for this, and then just keep doing it, like. Or only communicate by crossing and uncrossing your arms.
Yes. I'd love to go one year as the merchant from Resident Evil 4.
Take a look.
Just have all my wares in my jacket and just, what are you buying? What are you selling?
Yeah.
Lots of good things for sale, stranger.
I thought it was always like, once you click on him, he goes, take a look. And then he pulls the thing back. Like. Yeah, that was... good times. Sorry, just remembering the first time I ran across him, I was like, what the fuck is this guy?
I know, he has no explanation, and he looks like a bad guy as well. Like he could 100% looks more like a cultist than most of the cultists.
Oh yeah, like under the hood, you're pretty fairly certain he's a zombie, like. But it's like Zur in Destiny. Zur shows up and he has this fucking tentacle face thing going on. But anyway, so yeah, episode 24. Death, not to be confused with murder. We did an episode on murder, and murder is very much like, you know, it's a core staple of a lot of TV and film genres, and obviously games and stuff like that. It's sorry, you don't murder your enemies, you defeat them.
Yeah.
But like I defeated so many people with a chainsaw in Doom. But
or a car door, or
yeah. I mean, and remember, Batman has never killed anyone in one of the games. Especially when he got the tank and was running people over at 70 mile an hour. But yeah, I was more kind of interested in looking at how the different genres treat death, how they use it, and how they depict it, how it's used, and kind of how story has evolved around it. Because I've noticed a couple of things while playing, like by watching certain films and games recently, I've noticed certain behaviors that are kind of like I'm starting to really notice them. Like really notice certain ways they're doing things.
Right.
So like
I'm immediately going to interrupt with a notable trope.
Well, yeah, I figured. Go on.
Were you waiting for me to see when I was going to cut you off?
Maybe.
So I was looking at the various tropes associated with death. Again, not murder, not crime, anything like that. And the posthumous narrator is one that seems to transcend movies, TV shows, video games, all this kind of stuff. So like the start of American Beauty, where the character is like, this is the story of how I died.
Yes.
Desperate Housewives on TV, very famously every episode, like wherever this woman is, whatever afterlife she's in, she's staring down this little wisteria lane, this suburb. She is making note of everything that's happening. Show favorite Eternal Darkness starts with one of the opening lines is, I am Dr. Edward Rovas. I am a clinical psychologist. I am also dead. Yeah. And like, oh yes, of course.
Yeah, it is definitely. I think it's a great way of hooking people, because they're like,
it's a grab you by the balls moment of like, oh, and we've discussed before, it's nice to have something that you know is going to happen, like a familiar thing. So if you start with, I'm dead, you're like, okay, well, tell me the story of how you died, and at least I know where we're going with this.
Yeah, it's a semi-spoiler, and it's that, people now want to know, like, you've told them something's going to happen, and then you've enshrouded it in a mystery, and then they're more interested in how the mystery unfolds, already knowing the ending, rather than, is he going to make it, is he not?
Yeah.
So, which I feel in some instances is actually a better way of doing it, because the whole thing of will they make it or will they not can be quite a distraction. Or when you're told, no, that like it's, you go to see a lot of films and you're like, I don't care how much danger The Rock is in, I know he's going to survive. Yes. So it becomes almost kind of, it can be a little off-putting. Whereas if at the very start of the film he was like, by the way, I'm dead, and then you're like, okay, right, let's see then how this goes. You know what I mean? So
they do it in Tangled, the Disney Pixar one, where Flynn Rider starts the story with, this is the story of how I died, and then at one point in the story he dies, but then he just gets better. And you're like, well done you. Yes, you've subverted this neatly, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually like quite a good way of doing it, because people were like, oh, well, okay. And it's very a Disney thing of they got better. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But like, yeah, that's fine. I mean, yeah, I suppose that whole "this is how I died" thing. What did you call it? The
posthumous narrator.
Okay, yeah, not a post-mortem narrator, no.
Could be post, but yeah, either way. I'm just going with the TV tropes one in case people. I could give them my own names, but in case anyone wants to Google it, that's literally what it is on TV tropes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny that it's kind of one of the ones that is usually when you find a trope, it works for two of them, either movies and TV, but not games. It's one that I've seen played exactly the same in all three.
Yeah, that's actually quite rare, because like you said, like it's kind of the main way that this kind of podcast came about, is we realized that there was like certain things that just don't carry over or are completely subverted in one medium compared to the others. I think it's also like when you like the subversions within the genres are kind of, or within the platforms are kind of what make it more notable. Like so just to start, just to jump in, my own film one, before I say what it is, there's a specific type of film death that is kind of starting to annoy me now. When somebody, the biggest victim of it, or biggest example I can think of in recent memory, is Boromir in Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Okay? Now I don't.
He dies on.
No. It's him whole like protecting Merry and Pippin from the Uruk-hai, and he's fighting them, and he takes down a load of guys, and then the guy who's credited as Lurtz like just comes up and basically like downs him from range with an arrow, and then like plants 2 or 3 more arrows into him, and then he goes to execute him. Like he's standing over and he draws the bow, and then Aragorn smashes into him and they fight and he decapitates him, all that like, and then it's there's the like he hands him back his sword and he's like, I would have fought with you, my king. In the original books, now it's been about 12-14 years since I read that trilogy again, but I'm nearly certain they just find him dead. But there's no description of how he dies. They find him dead,
right? And
it's like, because it's told from the perspective of the 3 hunters. And it's so nearly the entire ending of the first volume of Lord of the Rings, from pretty much the point where they land on the banks, is told from the point of view of Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli.
Right.
And it's this whole thing of they realize Frodo's gone, and Aragorn's like, no, let them go. Aragorn and Sam, Frodo and Sam, let them go.
So,
and then
is it the noble drawn out death?
It's the suddenly, like, it's clearly shown all through the film that fucking Boromir and Aragorn don't like each other. Yeah, and it wasn't even that telegraphed in the books. It's very much just kind of, it's hinted at a little bit, and but for the most part, it's just kind of Boromir is like, we can do our own thing, don't worry about us. And the whole thing of like, he will betray you, etc., and all that. Like it, as far as I remember, yes, that scene does happen, where he's like, oh, you would take the ring and all the rest. You take the ring to Sauron, and then Frodo runs off. but then like it doesn't show you Boromir again, or it shows you like he hears the sound of the orcs coming, and he realizes he has to try and protect and try and make up for what he's tried to do, but you don't see him die. And it's this real kind of like they find him in the Horn of Gondor is literally cut in two down the middle. It's cut into two halves. So there's a whole thing where I was like, and at first I didn't notice it when I first watching the Lord of the Rings, and I kind of like I like those films, and I thought it was quite well done. But it seems to be more and more in films. It's like, oh, don't you die on me, man! Oh, I'm going. And it's like, fuck off.
It's a classic. It's as old as like this one's as old as cinema nearly.
Yeah, but so's fucking racism. It's not a good thing. Like there comes a point where it's like, learn to tell your story better. Learn to tell your story in a way that I'm not going to expect it. And that's where I come to the, like, and obviously this has happened in numerous other films. There is some that do it very well because of how the story is being structured. But I found that the film treatment of Lord of the Rings, that particular one where it's suddenly the redemptive death. It's suddenly we're all best friends because you're gonna die, and don't worry, I'll make sure that I get your letter home to your wife and all this bullshit. Yeah. But if you actually look at like I thought the Terminator 2 one, the famous Terminator 2 one where he goes into the fire, that one's quite well done because it's a case of they survived and he's like, no, I have to go because otherwise this is all just going to keep fucking happening. And there's this whole thing of all the way through the film, like because Sarah Connor is the narrator for that film, it happening between the other two main characters makes it more interesting because it's like she has been making these observations and trying to and where she makes the observation of like watching him protect John. He would never beat him, he would never get drunk and hurt him, he would never shout at him, he would always be there, and it's this whole thing of like he's essentially the perfect father in a way. But it's and then like the bonding between them where he's teaching him how to smile, he's teaching him how to swear and shit like that, and then that scene where he has to sacrifice himself because he's like he knows to do this, he will try and spare John his future. And so I'm like, yeah, that's a really good example of it because that was built up and reinforced all the way through the film. So it was a logical conclusion. And it made sense. It wasn't a case of they hate each other, they hate each other, they hate each other. Oh my god, one of them's going to die, you're my best friend. And that's kind of that shit. Like, I think that's just a really poor storytelling mechanic. The one that I think is a really, like, the type of death. Go on. Just
on that note, there's... at that point in Lord of the Rings, they're pretty much in a war movie. Like they've been on their journey movie, and then they're kind of walking into a war.
Yeah.
They're being hunted and stuff. That is something that comes up. The noble death, the redemptive death, is something that happens in every single war movie. And it means that if I start watching a war movie, it's like when you start watching a western, somebody needs to walk into a saloon and do the doors. And until that happens, I'm kind of sitting there nearly nervously, kind of going, oh, could you just get that bit out of the way so that we can get on with the movie? And if I see like people under fire in a war movie, I'm like, someone's going to get gut shot, they're going to do a really long drawn out death, can we just get that out of the way super quickly and then get on with the rest of the movie? It's like, it's something they feel like there's a box that needs to be ticked there, or it's just something very easy to do that is an emotional moment and that's exactly the right type of movie to do it.
It's like in some films, particularly in that one, it's particularly in Lord of the Rings, it's very jarring because they even like they overemphasize the whole thing of them being assholes to each other. Or Boromir being the asshole and Aragorn not trusting him and like looking at him slyly all the time. And if it was like that in the original book, I think I'd mind less. But it just made me notice it again. I put it on in the background the other day when I was doing something, and it was like, it just reminded me that whole thing of they're so antagonistic to one another throughout the whole first film. And I think it was almost like they felt that the filmmakers had to manufacture that in or over amplify it because you have to save you really have to save the majority of the ring rate stuff and the majority of the all that for later on. You can't have a huge amount of
our death episode was off to a really strong start with Sean Bean as the very first
death.
It'd be hilarious if we just did Sean Bean every time. It was like, well, at the start of the game, GoldenEye, of course there's 006, and my movie is also GoldenEye with 006.
I felt like I had to at least mention him once, but like a good example, I think, and one that I thought was quite entertaining. Not that I was entertained by death, but I was entertained by how they set it up and how they pulled it off. Was Collateral. So I don't mean the final showdown. I mean Mark Ruffalo is in Collateral.
I haven't actually seen Collateral. It's the one with Grey Tom Cruise.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so you haven't seen it, so I may end up spoiling this for you, but also shame on you
it.
for not seeing it, because it's one of the best Tom Cruise films ever made. Because he's the bad guy. He's an asshole. He's a complete prick. And Tom Cruise does really good asshole characters. I mean,
I've heard it's really good. I will actually watch it.
Yeah, so Mark Ruffalo is a detective. Him and Peter Berg are the detectives interviewing what's going on. Because the whole idea of Collateral is that, like, what's his name's character, Tom Cruise's character, will show up somewhere, and he shows up to the city. He has 5 targets, and he basically will kill them all in one night, and then he leaves the city. And it's because, you know, he's a professional hitman. He has no connection to any of these people, so the fact that he's only there for a single night, oh, are we in town, was going to see a gig, whatever, you know, it allows him to, excuse me, even if someone actually looked at him, it'd be like, no, whatever. And what he does is he always pick up a taxi driver, and then he makes it look like they did it.
Right.
Over the course of the thing. So it's like there's the majority of the focus of the film is based around Jamie Foxx as the taxi driver and Tom Cruise as the hitman. But then there's also the secondary secondary plot line. I've been talking games all week. Been talking games all week and work. So secondary plot line of the detectives looking into it. Mark Ruffalo, as you may have indicated because of the title of the episode, he does get killed, but it happens with next to no ceremony and next to no real build up and next to no big, like, drawn out fight scene.
No fanfare, kind of.
Yeah, it's very much Tom Cruise's character realizes who he is and what he's up to, and as soon as he just kills him.
Nice.
There's no, like, oh, we'll have the witty back and forth. Oh, I'm going to get into a fight, and you're almost going to disarm me, and and then we have to struggle over the gun, and you know what I mean? No, he just kills him, and it was a real kind of. It was so refreshing when I first saw it. I was like, oh, holy shit! Right, okay. Now
I've seen that in other movies where like a revelation happens that one character realizes, and you can see the decision on their face, and the gunshot's gone before they. I think they do it at the end of one of the Taken movies where a guy walks out and goes, "You can have the girl," and he shoots him in the face immediately. And I'm like, "Thank you."
Yeah,
that is very refreshing.
Yeah, and it's that whole. Yeah, it's like, sorry, they run into each other. I was just trying to clarify it in my own head because I was like, I suddenly had a bit of self-doubt. They run into each other. Vincent, who's Tom Cruise's character, realizes what's going on. Max, who's what's his name's character, Jamie Foxx's character, is basically with him. He brings him in and he attacks a nightclub to take a guy out. He takes a guy out. Detective Fanning, can't remember his first name, which is Mark Ruffalo's character, shows up, realizes that Max is innocent, and is like, "Come on, I'll help you leave." And as they walk out the door, like, Vincent just comes out from another door and just shoots him dead straight away. Like, he doesn't get a chance to pull his weapon. He doesn't get a chance to react. Vincent doesn't even break stride. It's literally just walks out, shoots him in the head, and then looks at Max and he's like, "What are you doing?" And it's this real kind of incidental kind of like, holy shit. Because, when the film was made, I think it's about 10 years old at this point, maybe older. It's 2004, okay. Yeah, so it's a good while back. And Mark Ruffalo wasn't as big then as he is now, but he'd still been in a decent amount of films. He was still a recognisable actor. And I, like, when I first saw the film, I was like, oh, it's Mark Ruffalo. So it was very kind of jarring. Now, I kind of like that in films and in TV. The big drawn out death thing. It's like I said. It's what it also feels is like it's really loose storytelling.
It's a way doing something like that just subverts it a little bit, or is just doesn't get fanfare. Death is such a big thing that it has to get fanfare in every medium. So when it just happens like that, it kind of lets you feel like anything could then happen in the rest of the story.
Yes.
There's what I never actually saw the movie before I saw this clip. So there's a very famous death scene in Meet Joe Black. Mm-hmm. And I remember that being shared around as like a little clip on like file sharing sites
with the traffic.
Like, oh, guy, guy really
that
dies.
Happens in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, And he's like, they're doing the movie. It's like the punch at the start of intermission or something. Just that the movie starts, guy walks into traffic, gets hit by 2 cars. Like he gets hit with a car so hard he's launched into the air, and then a van comes out of nowhere and smacks him. And like, it's so jarring. You're like, wow, I really thought this was going to be one kind of a movie. I guess it's going to be something completely different. They do it as well in the Netflix show Ozark, where it's really tense. And there's a character who needs to go in and confront somebody, and he's kind of like pumping himself up in the car. He gets out of his car, goes to cross the street, and a body just hits the ground next to him, where someone's been thrown out of a window, like a lawyer's been thrown out of a window. Like there's some act of violence that just happened, and that. Like after that moment, that whatever happens in the show, you're like, fuck me, like this, literally anything could happen now. Nobody is safe.
And that's what I like, because like particularly in stuff like thrillers and that, where it's like this whole will they won't they survive thing, it takes a lot of the tension out of it. And the whole point of a thriller is to have tension, narrative, suspenseful tension. By doing something like that, where suddenly just out of nowhere, without warning, without preamble, without the normal kind of build up, something like that happens. That's the starting gun. That's the whole thing of anything go, like, buckle up, because we could do anything. Like we're not fucking around at this point, essentially.
I'm going to give props to the whoever psychopath wrote Bambi back in the day, because it always used to start with the kids are orphans as part of this fairy tale, and we just move on, or the kids have parents and like it's fine. Just to start with a parent and then kill it. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. What would your film be?
My film, I wanted a film about death, but not kind of featuring all sorts of gruesome deaths and like murder and destruction and stuff. So I was looking at Harold and Maude, which is a black comedy from 1971. I don't know if you've seen it.
No.
It's up on Netflix, and I would absolutely recommend it to anyone to give it a watch. It's a cult classic, and really deservedly so. It's a really, really good one. It's a lovely movie. It's a romantic movie. It's an uplifting movie. And it starts with, it's about this 19-year-old guy who's from a wealthy family, and he's absolutely obsessed with death, which is kind of played for laughs. He stages elaborate fake suicides all the time. He drives a hearse, and the movie starts with him. He attends other people's funerals just for fun. That's what he does. And this is all set to a lovely Cat Stevens soundtrack, all kind of uplifting 70s kind of music. And it's just this morbid dude. And while he's at a funeral, he meets a 79-year-old woman called Maude, who is also just hanging out at funerals, just for the crack. But while he's so morbid and like down, she is completely uplifting and full of life and everything. And it's just their story. The two of them start hanging out, like this firm friendship. The guy's mother, his very wealthy mother, keeps trying to set him up with all these women. She's like, you're 19, now you're going to be 20. We're going to start getting you married off. Think about like just trying to normalize him a little bit. Just, dude, be normal. And every time she invites someone over to the grounds, he stages a fake suicide in order to scare them off. So like it starts with him like tying a noose and hanging himself, or like while people are talking to him, he takes a gun out the table and just crosses himself, holds it up, and there's a bang and he just falls backwards in the chair. And like it ends with, while the mother is talking to this lady, he's in the background, like walks out into the garden and just starts pouring gasoline on himself. And the woman's like getting more and more visibly upset, but the mother won't stop talking. And then it cuts back, and there's a dude just on fire in the background. And it's played for laughs, but it's not like Airplane or something where it's done as cutaway jokes. It's implied that he's set up these mad elaborate things. And he starts hanging out with this 80-year-old woman, and she is the manic pixie dream girl of this. She's stealing cars and doing her own thing. Like she's kind of done with life. It owes her nothing, so she's doing whatever the fuck she wants. And it's so like there's a bit in it where he goes, while the mother's talking to him, he starts putting out a mat and takes out a katana and does a full ritualistic seppuku while people are setting up for dinner table, and the mother is ignoring him constantly because she won't give him any attention when he's doing this bullshit.
Okay, fair enough.
But it is very, very good, because just the music is lovely. It's all if you want to sing out, sing out, and if you want to be you, be you. Like it's all, it might as well be a Disney movie.
Okay, sounds like one.
It's kind of a movie where this dude is trying his hardest to celebrate death. He's trying everything he can do to be obsessed with death, but life keeps coming back to him, and he keeps finding he has to celebrate life. And the movie itself is a celebration of life. But about halfway through, you do realize it's about a young guy obsessed with death and a woman who's probably nearing the end of her life. And then they do start having some very serious conversations, and some of it is just her kind of going, I don't care at this stage, like, this is fine. And like there's some hints that maybe she's not all there, and that she might have the sort of dementia and stuff. And it is like just him kind of having this fling with this woman, and it becomes romantic. It is this very strange movie, but I would recommend it. It is, what would I compare it to for people? Natural Born Killers. Yeah, so it sounds it's the complete other side of the coin. Like there is a bit where to get like his mum signs him up for the military eventually, and Harold and Maude, like she knows he's obsessed with death. She knows he's like this. She thinks it's hilarious. She's got like a pet goth that she can bring around and do shit with, and he's wealthy, so she's kind of blown through some of his money as well. But to get out of the army while he's doing drills, she dresses up like a protester and hangs around and shouts at him, and he just murders her. Like he just like absolutely goes through the motions, and they kick him out of the army because they figure he's just murdered a woman, or at least attempted to. And then they have a giggle about it, like they think it's the funniest thing in the world. But it is on the surface about death, then underneath that about life, and then underneath that about death. And it is one, if you just want to, it is on Netflix. I recommend it. If you want a movie that you gonna go into completely blank and you're not sure exactly what you're in for, it's one I'd recommend. If you want to take my word for it. Okay, okay, that's fine. That's fair enough. That's yeah, okay. Harold and Maude, yeah. Yeah, it is going to be. It's very difficult for me to get the tone of it. It's like trying to explain Beetlejuice to someone. If they don't know. It's a movie about the afterlife, and they're like, so it's all about hell, and it's like, not really. It's more fun. So it's about heaven. Not really. It's more dark. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. It is R-rated, I think. So it is as much as it's kind of. Wanna be if a guy's committing seppuku and setting himself on fire, But it's so good. Every time. There's like a lovely moment where he does the first fuel, or he does something to piss off his mum, and his mum like looks away from him, and he looks directly into the camera and smiles at that moment, or like he's giving the finger to his mum behind her back and stuff, just being like a prick about it. So it's basically young prick meets old manic pixie dream lady, and madness ensues. Just on the mention of seppuku, shout out to my mate Ed, who occasionally watches, listens. So he had to have an operation when he was a young child. He was about a year old. But now that he's fully grown, the scar is huge because it's like scaled up with him. And every time someone asks him, like if a randomer asks him, sees it, and like, what's that about? He will give them a bullshit answer. And he once told some young one he was scoring in a bar. He once told her that he had done something to dishonor his family and had to attempt seppuku, but he fucked it up. And she was like, either she was hammered or whatever, she was just like, oh wow, that's so sad. And he's just like, so oh, that's lovely. Yeah, so that's just, just putting that out there for him. So. Yep. So games. What have you a notable tropable for games? I do, as actually, I have a notable tropable. It's kind of for games and movies. It actually started in comic books, and it is the woman in the refrigerator. No, it's the woman in the refrigerator. Oh yeah, fridging the wife. Yeah, fridging the girlfriend. Fridging the wife. Fridging the girlfriend. Yeah, I thought it was called Girlfriend in the Fridge. No, it's fridging. So it is a trope where, in order to spur on a hero, or usually male, in order to spur on someone. You unceremoniously kill usually a female character, sometimes a kid, sometimes a dog in John Wick, but you just kill someone to make the evil person seem much more evil. Yes. I'd even put the Joker paralyzing Barbara Gordon in the same thing, or someone killing a Robin. It's basically, we've done. You say someone killing a Robin. It's always the Joker. It's not Dick Black Mask beat the shit out of a Robin, I think. Yeah, he beat him up, but I don't think he killed him. So. Yeah, it is mostly the Joker. But it is, in my mind, I haven't read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of episodes of Green Lantern, but it seems like they're just out of fucking ideas. Maybe it made perfect sense if you read the whole run, but anytime somebody just says, oh fuck it, we'll just kill the girlfriend. If it's a long running series, it's basically we're out of fucking ideas. If it's right at the start, then it's a completely disposable character. They just basically introduce someone so they can kill them. But the reason I'm associated with games is there's a scene in Gears of War 2 that always bothered me, where Dom and his finally tries to rescue his wife, but
Maria,
it turns out that she's been in suffering, and he has to do a mercy killing.
Yeah.
But there's something that always bothered me about that. I don't know why. Just it's a very famous death scene in games. I went and looked at it again this morning. The thing that they get her out of, the chamber that she's in, looks far too much like a fridge for my liking.
Well, see, the thing is that it's a torture chamber that you also pull. Like it's like hinted at in the first game.
It's a sci-fi Iron Maiden kind of job.
Yeah, but it's hinted at in the first game, but then it's actually like reinforced in the second game that the Locusts have been torturing humans that they capture. The earlier example in the story is when you get Ty out. So you Ty Kaliso, the big Mary fucker. Probably my favorite character in the multiplayer version, because whichever one you play as, they have different lines, and all his lines are like nuts. But yeah, big, huge Mary guy, tattooed, and his entire right arm is tattooed, and half his face, and he's mohawk and all the rest. And he's really pragmatic. So up until you play through maybe 2 acts with him, and he's real kind of like laid back, and he's very philosophical about everything and quite chill, even though like the world's gone to shit. And then he gets captured, and you rescue him. And when you pull him out of one of those things, and they started to fuck with him, you can see there's it shows you him from behind, and you can see all these scars on his back that the guys can't see. And Marcus is like, it's a little cutscene, and Marcus hands him a shotgun, and he's like, "Here you go, Ty," and he's like, "All right, let's get the fuck out of here." And then you just hear a shotgun blast because Ty has killed himself because of what he's been put through, and they've only had him for like 48 hours. So it's the whole thing of like the
sounds like these locusts are evil in some way.
Yes, almost.
But the things that they put them in just look a little bit too much like refrigerators for me. Where I watched it again, I was like, it's a bit on the nose. But I mean, for giant fridge men headbutting each other, I suppose that's the subtlest they get.
Yeah, but it's like just to literally explain fridging the girlfriend to people who might not know, because it's a term that has kind of come into use in the last, say, like 8 to 10 years. Like it's when it's kind of really starting to take hold. It was from Green Lantern back in the mid-90s. And he literally comes home one day. Kyle Rayner, who was the 4th Green Lantern, probably the best one of a lot of them, and he's certainly the most powerful one to date, I think.
Oh, absolutely! He's much better than.
No, like from a comic perspective. So there's been 4 of them.
Wally.
So they did like Wally West, the Flash. They did.
Thank you.
The first one was Hal Jordan, and he's a fighter pilot. He's an Air Force guy, and he's. That's unfortunately what the film was based on with Ryan Reynolds. Then there's a guy called Guy Gardner, who's just a bit of an arse, but he gets shit done. The third guy is John Stewart, African American former Marine, and is an architect. And then Kyle Rayner is a comic book artist, and he's a graphic designer, comic book artist. And the whole thing about them is that, like, because it's powered by your imagination, whenever Hal Jordan has to deal with something, he summons in fighter planes and battleships and tanks and stuff. Whenever
was it one of them is afraid? One of them, when he gets his powers, he's afraid of yellow, but he loves golden showers, so it's like a whole thing. Yeah, I think that's what happened.
Yeah, could be. But then like Guy Gardner just being the asshole, he just used the simplest thing to get the job done. John Stewart always uses like engineering stuff, because he's an architect, it's rational minded. Whereas Kyle Rayner is probably the best from the perspective of a reader, because he's a graphic designer, he just comes up with mental shit. So there's a time when they're trying to stop something striking the earth, and he has created 2 kids, but they're like cartoon kids, and each one of them is about 800 miles tall, and one of them has a baseball bat, and the other one has like the catcher's mitt behind them,
right? And
they're literally like getting ready to knock the thing away. So, but yeah, it's so he comes home one day and he finds his girlfriend has been killed and stuffed into a refrigerator by a villain called Major Force. So he's like, we say fridging the girlfriend. It's not the case of like, oh yeah, like they dropped a fridge on her, or they or something like that, or she was hit with a flying.
They put her on ice.
He literally killed her, folded her, and put her in the fridge. There's also, I think it happens again later on, where Major Force, like he takes out someone's grandmother, but he folds her and puts her in an oven. And it's just
so
he's
weird.
like and when he does it, he's like mumbling to himself about like, well, he goes, well, you got to mix it up a little or something stupid like that. Like it's fucking mental. But it's yeah, so it's been used over and over again in films. The fridging the girlfriend.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that with the Gears of War reference, I'm not too sure about that one, like, because it's kind of like the defining feature of him all the way through the first half of the series. So the first game and then the first half of the second game. It's like,
I was just talking about the scene itself more so than the actual usage of it.
Yeah.
For looking at the game stuff, because like you were saying that your protagonist isn't going to die in a movie. Like if someone is talking, you're kind of like, I mean, I know The Rock isn't going to fucking die. But in games, you can die, and you either reload or you go back to a checkpoint or something like that.
Yeah.
So I was looking at a few games where they use death as a mechanic. And there's the trial and death games that became very popular with the Dark Souls, and then even indie games like Limbo and Super Meat Boy, where it becomes part of the flow. Like I loved Limbo for that, where you just tested each area, you ran until you got killed, and then you knew where that death point was, and then you ran and jumped that time. And a game that does and I know obviously Dark Souls uses it to fantastic effect, I think. But the game that I really, really liked with it was What Remains of Edith Finch.
Okay.
And it's one I've talked about previously, so I won't go into huge details on it. But the story is that you are the last line of the Finch family. Their family tree is traumatic. It rumored to be cursed. Everybody dies in some horrible way. And you're coming home to your family house, and I think maybe your mother has died very recently, so you're kind of going through, and everybody's room has been kept as like a shrine to them. So as you go along, you learn a little bit about your family, and kind of as this ritual of remembrance as your character explores, and the house is labyrinthine to kind of give the impression that it is a family tree. It's something with lots of branches and little crawl spaces you can get into to learn stuff. But you play out the last hours of every member of your family, every significant member. So when you go and find a keepsake that belongs to one person, you then jump to that person in their last hours.
Okay.
And you live through their death. And in some of them, like it's there's a tragic one where somebody sets up your play style differs for each one. So one of them, you're a camera person, you spent ages getting a camera shot just right, and then you go around to stand in front of like a deer that's been shot or something like that, and it bucks at the last second and knocks you off a cliff and your character is dead. And then there's ones where like you're obsessed with trains, you're this slightly touched kind of fella, and eventually you break out of the house. You spend, like, they're trying to keep you inside, and then you break out of the house, find a tunnel and start walking towards it, and you see a light coming towards you, and that's the last moment of that guy. And there's some really, really poignant moments where you play children. There's kids who've died as his family, and they see the world completely differently. Like they see toys coming to life and all sorts of crazy stuff. And that's really, really nice. When those moments happen, you're like, oh fuck, this is a really fun game. Like I'm talking to my toys, I'm dancing with rubber duckies, and then you realize what the game is. You're like, oh wait, I have to kill myself in a minute. And one of the characters, like the kid, the way you do it is you turn on a tap while someone leaves you unattended in a bathtub, and it is astoundingly like just emotional to go through this and be from a kid's point of view in your last seconds going, oh shit, and like as a kid I don't know what I'm doing, so I guess I just have to do this. But it is a really, really, really good game, and each little vignette is nicely different, stylistically different, shows kind of the frame of mind the person was in, so it's a good kind of treatise on the different things. There's a guy with depression who you have to do, I was saying this before, you have to control him with the controller, and one half of the controller is his boring job and the other half of the controller is his fantasy life, and as you play that level, the boring job takes up less and less and less of the screen, and the fantasy life starts taking up more, so you're playing two games at once.
Okay.
But it's a really nice little indie game. I would recommend it for a Sunday where you want to spend kind of maybe 4 or 5 hours just going through, where you would usually be sitting watching a box set, sitting watching 6 episodes of something. Play through this. You can stop at any point. They are episodic. And there's a really, really nice moment as well where one of the characters is murdered. So it goes into full slasher movie. Like you return to the house, but instead of it being the normal house, it's done like a Tales from the Crypt style,
All right, okay,
like
yeah.
schlocky horror. So it's really nicely done. But I think that is the one that uses a death mechanic in a really interesting way to just basically go, and that's the end of that chapter. Moving on.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty good. I like those kind of. Obviously, as we mentioned earlier, like Eternal Darkness, like it does a similar thing where it's like every page you find of the Tome of Eternal Darkness, you play a different character, and I always like the little games like that where you get to try out different things, and it's not just you're constrained by a single player. Now I get that's the majority of games, and by their nature, it kind of has to be, but being able to mix it up and move around a bit like that can help. My own games, it was just, I wanted to mention, what you call it, Grim Fandango. Just because it's
of course
it's a game exclusively about the afterlife. So like kind of taking on your tropable from earlier, your notable tropable from earlier. It's not a case of like this is how I died. It starts off with so you're dead, now what? And it which is it's a different approach. It's and it has some fun with it, and because it is a Tim Schafer game and all the rest.
Yeah.
But the actual game I wanted to mention was go on, sorry.
No, I love that he's sold as a travel agent to the underworld.
Yes,
I loved it. Just that itself is such a good, like, your mind goes to so many cool places with that phrase, a travel agent to the afterlife or to the underworld.
Yeah, and it's a kind of a piss take on like Dante's Inferno as well. Like he is essentially like was it Virgil who brings you in and shows him through and that type of thing. But the game I actually wanted to mention was an indie game called To the Moon.
Yes.
So To the Moon was made by a studio like 4 people. It's made using RPG Maker a couple of years back. It's about a tenner on Steam, though you can get it in sales for like as low as like £2. There is no combat in it. It's all puzzle solving, dialogue solving, that type of thing. It's a very relaxed game. It's very chill. They basically took this pre-made engine, made the game, put their own art and their own music into it. But the whole idea is that you work for a particular group that will come to people in their dying hours, and what you do is there's like a medical device that they strap onto them, and you can go back and help that person relive their entire life in their memories, but help them to fix any mistakes that they've done so they can die content, so that it's a matter of they don't have regrets because they get to see what would have happened if they had have taken that trip, if they had have said yes instead of no and stuff like that. So it's a weird kind of like death is this kind of premise.
It's a sci-fi It's a Wonderful Lifing someone kind at the very end of their life.
Yes, yeah. And it's like you're not actually changing anything. The whole idea is that you're just in their mind, their memories. You're giving them the chance to experience what could have been, and in a positive way. And it's designed to just kind of help people, deal with it and deal with to not have regrets. It's like the Jacob's Ladder thing, that scene in Jacob's Ladder, which I always loved, where when he's explaining to him what the demons are.
The doctor?
Yeah. He's if you're frightened of dying and you're holding on, you'll see devils tearing your life away. But if you're at peace and you've nothing to worry about, those demons are really angels freeing you from the earth. And it's kind of what you're doing. You're going in and you're like, what were your regrets? I should have asked such and such out on a date. I should have taken that job. I should have gone to such and such an event rather than not going. And you
is your role in this game? Are you the? I know the game, and I actually I watched someone play it through an entire Sunday, but I didn't actually. I was kind of dipping in and out. Is your role as the person who's dying, or is your role like a technician?
No, you're one of the 2 technicians.
Okay.
So it's it's a really beautiful game. It's really well made. It's a very kind of, it has that kind of Zen thing where it's like you don't have to. There is no combat. There is no major action sequences. It's all just about helping improve people's lives, even if it's only in their own head, even if it's only their memory, to make them feel better. You know what I mean? It's a mercy service type of thing. But I just thought it's very interesting in its treatment of death, because it's like nobody in the game is particularly frightened of dying. They're very much just kind of like, this is coming and I kind of regret, how certain parts of my life went. And you're like, okay, we're not going for the big fantastical, like the normal gaming trope you would expect is we're going to stop you from dying. We're going to find a way to cure you. We're going to find a way so you can live on. It's like, it's not about that. It's about helping people come to terms with or resolve certain things in their life so that they can move on peacefully. And I really like that. I think it's a very it was a nice treatment. And it's quite refreshing in games. Because in games it is normally the whole thing of, well, no, you saved the town and you cured the illness and you stopped the necromancer. And you know what I mean? It's just having this kind of much more, the game feels a lot more intimate as well because of it. There is no massive scope. There is no massive, yes, I wanted to be president and I never,
Yeah.
It feels quite good. And it's kind of strange that the topic about it is essentially death in a weird way. It's never the primary topic in any of the stories you're playing through, but it's like this extra character that's just there. And
do they get to the moon?
Well, you'll have to play it and find out, won't you? So yeah, no, I just wanted to mention that one. I just thought it was a good kind of, because like I said, I was more kind of looking at this topic as the treatment of it and how people do it, and stuff like roguelike games and stuff like that are quite obvious.
Yeah,
where it's a different iteration of the level every time, but you get to carry some progress forward and stuff like that. But yeah, this was more kind of just it was more like a reflective game than anything else.
I was wondering if we would both pick indie games, because indie games are the ones where people can explore stuff like this. I wonder what the barrier to entry for some people would be, because they're so stylized. Like To the Moon is pixel art, top down, very much.
Yeah, but it's you can literally play the game. You can play the game with the 4 arrow keys and I think the space bar. There's no. That's kind of part of the reason I'd recommend it, is that there is no big action. There is no getting your head around a control scheme. It's very simple. It's essentially a visual novel for all intents and purposes. You are playing through the story, but it's just. The theme of it and the pacing is quite nice. If another indie game I thought of, but I was I quickly dismissed because of how grim it could be. I don't want to go necessarily recommending this, but if you ever feel just crying unconsolably at a game, go play that Dragon Cancer.
Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah, that's I mean, amazing props to the guy for making it. But at the same time, it's not something I would stick 2 thumbs up and go, I recommend, you know what I mean?
Pick of the week.
Pick of the week. What could go wrong? So yeah.
Moving on to TV shows then.
Yeah, what's your notable tropeable? We know you have one.
Yeah, no, I didn't actually have one, but I'll come up with one on the spot now, which is for TV shows. There's lots and lots and lots of ones that are about death. We were talking about iZombie last time. I've never watched 10 Feet Under, or Pushing Daisies, or
6 Feet Under.
6 Feet Under.
Was 10 Feet Under the sequel?
10 Feet Under, yes. We're
going
deeper,
4.
baby.
Yeah, season 4.
It's like Ocean's 11. They have to keep adding more characters.
Yeah, no, they kept adding characters, and then they just added 1 and divided by 2.
Yes.
So we got to the latest
one. But I've never watched any of those. I don't know why. I watched The Good Place recently, which is a really nice one about the afterlife. But my kind of trope for TV shows would be the very special episode, the one that is kind of completely out of the blue for a lot of shows that would be more comedic or more action packed.
Yeah.
And then the episodes I'd like to talk about would be the mother's death in Buffy.
Yes.
I think the episode's called The Body, and it is it's one of those ones where they have an opportunity to do a really, really jarring thing, and they do themed episodes. They do.
Yeah, they did a musical. They did a silent one.
They did a musical. Yeah. They did a silent one. They did a surrealist, absurdist one. They did a bunch of these, but this one felt really, really kind of poignant. And it wasn't that they were just fucking around with a theme, or they weren't just doing they weren't just kind of smiling smugly and going, "Oh, we'll do something weird here." And I have read that it was about someone had died in Joss Whedon's life. But the moment that gets me is just the sound design and the weirdness of everything. Obviously if someone dies, but then normal things start sounding weird. And there's a bit where Buffy, after getting the news and after kind of knowing everything, just walks through her house, bends down off camera, just disappears off camera, vomits on the floor, and you can hear wind chimes clonking. And then she walks through her house, and the footsteps are really loud, and she opens the back door, and you can hear kids playing, and she just stares out at presumably at these children, hears kids playing, stares out at the neighborhood, and it cuts to her face, and she looks horrible. She looks sweaty. The sun looks too bright. I was like, oh man, they made so many good choices to capture all of the
it's all stuff that's done without saying anything, which is very important. It's like a line of dialogue has to be incredibly funny or incredibly poignant to stick with you, but or incredibly apt to the situation, whereas like a good visual will just register with you that bit faster.
Yeah. And that's the whole episode about dealing with death, and they always do good characterization. Even with the singing episode, everybody is perfectly in character. Everybody's either excited to be singing or worried or expressing themselves in some way that the people who write for them just had them nailed down. And watching everyone come to terms differently in that episode is really good. And Anya, the ex-demon, saying really crass things and horrible things, and then freaking out because she was previously immortal and now has to face mortality through the death of someone else, is kind of sticking. Because again, that's what happens. People react differently. Everybody has their own kind of reactions to something as terrible as that. And just one more quick one of that. That's a very kind of downer one. So as not to end on that, let's end on an equally downer one, which is the episode of Scrubs with Dr. Cox's friend, played by Brendan Fraser.
Oh, it's his brother-in-law. That episode is horrific. Like
that one as well is one where, again, a very special episode where they don't spend the whole episode on it. They just, for that last nearly 5 minutes, JD loses.
It's not JD. It's not JD. I know what you're going to say, but go on.
So at the start, there's a really nice moment where at the start Ben is going around the brother-in-law. He's got his camera, and I think he's got a line where he says, he's like, "Will you put that camera away?" He's like, "Man, I'm gonna have it till I die." And then about halfway through an episode, JD loses a patient, and Dr. Cox loses the head with them, tells him to go home, and then Ben starts popping around and doing. It's a little bit Sixth Sense where he's talking to Dr. Cox. He notably doesn't have his camera anymore.
Yeah.
And for the rest of the episode, only he interacts with Dr. Cox, and Dr. Cox interacts with him.
But it's done in such a way that you don't really notice the first time.
Yeah, and it's a really nice. They did it in a very confident way. The guys who made that show did it in a very nice way, where they kind of knew they had the characters, they had a bit of heart to the series that they'd established, and that they could get away with something like this. And then the last scene, which is one of the best bits of television I've ever seen, where Dr. Cox is looking at Ben. He's like, "How come you don't have to wear a suit?" And he goes, I'm dressed up fancy. You don't see any holes in these trousers." He's like, "Well, aren't you going to take some pictures?" And JD just walks behind and goes, "Pictures of what?"
And,
Kids crying, people singing "Happy Birthday" to my son who've never even met him before. And just JD looks at him and kind of goes, "Where do you think you are?"
Yeah, that scene is
oh man.
And then it just zooms out and shows you that you're actually at it. They're at
Ben's
graveyard.
funeral.
And it's that scene, I remember, the first time I watched it, I was just like, I was like, something's off here. Something's they're in denial about what's wrong with him. It's but I was like, no, they've done that already with the episode where they keep it like the previous one where it's like he has.
They're trying to. Yeah, he's got leukemia. He gets diagnosed, and JD tries to. And it's in denial about it.
Yeah, and I was like, nah, they're not going to do that again. What is it? And I was trying to figure it out, and then it's like, near the end, I'm like, he's not wearing his camera. Okay, what's going on here? And then it does that scene, and you're like, Jesus, that's just brutal. I think that's I think when it's done in comedy and when it's done well, because like anything, great drama and great comedy both rely on timing. More than anything else, more than action can be kind of, but like truly great comedy and truly great drama there's an element of timing, and that's why when you look, people go like, oh, such and such an actor, he's so good as in the dramatic roles. I didn't think he was this funny, and it's again, it's timing, it's delivery, it's emoting with your body and stuff like that. So in that particular
I really want to just shout the word timing and cut you off at a really inopportune moment.
The
funny thing about comedy is
that's the joke.
The timing.
It's like when you go to someone, it's like, ask me what the most important thing to comedy is, and they go, what's the most important? Your timing. And they're like, okay, right, fair enough. But that particular episode, and there's a couple of others, there's a handful of others in Scrubs that are just because of how good the comic timing was in that show. It's a more welcoming atmosphere for a viewer. If you watch a TV show and there's drama happening, and you're the outside observer, and you're like, I want to see what happens. If you're watching a comedy and it's very much like friends hanging around with each other, not just the workplace. I think Scrubs wouldn't have worked anywhere near as good if it was only focused on the workplace. But because it showed so much that was happening in their personal lives, and nearly half of the first 3 seasons happened in JD and Turk's apartment, and it's that whole thing of you feel like one of their friends, you feel like you're being included. So when something happens to one of them, you feel it that bit more keenly, as long as it's not delivered in a ham-fisted way, like. But yeah, that's definitely one that I find kind of, I think it's kind of interesting. That
we mentioned Jacob's Ladder there. I've just noticed the sun has come out, and I'm completely bleached out, and I actually look like the end of Jacob's Ladder. I do look like I'm walking into the light at the moment.
I did have that when I was editing the last one. I was like, I could tell at what point the sun came out while we were filming, because suddenly Johnny turns like pure white, and it's like I can't see him anymore. What's going on? But yeah, no, that's less of a downer, but kind of more of a downer at the same time. Yeah.
So what was your TV choice?
It's weird. It's more kind of like it's this thing that I find kind of odd in TV. It's not a specific example, but it's certain series do it a lot. So, I don't think shows like CSI or Criminal Minds and stuff like that would work, would have as many people watching them if the murders happened halfway through. You'll notice that whenever somebody's murdered in one of those shows, it happens within the first 5 to 10 minutes. But there's no character build up. It's a complete depersonalization of the character. It's just like, this is just a face who's probably crying or who's being a smug arsehole and then gets killed. Like you can see it in Criminal Minds, where it's a case of you will see a killer at the very start or in a cold open killing someone, and then they get word of the body and they go out and they investigate, blah blah blah, blah. And they're like, oh, it's only so much time until he strikes again, and then you'll see someone getting taken, but that person will survive.
They depersonalized to the point that I used to watch I was a huge fan of CSI and Bones, and I used to watch Bones and eat dinner. Like I'd come home, make dinner, stick on Bones. The character would be dead, like usually because it's Bones, they'd be dead for a while, and now she has to solve the mystery using the bone.
Oh, indeed.
But like she would use maggots to strip flesh off bones so she could get to the skeleton. Let's stop using the word bones. But I would happily sit and watch that. Whereas like if the character died halfway through and I've like got to know about them even for a second, it's like, hey, he's got a pet gerbil, and I was like, oh no,
yeah,
no, he's a dude.
That's the thing. It's kind of interesting. Whereas like, so you look at shows like that where they specifically know not to kill anyone who's introduced past like the 10-minute mark. You know what I mean? Unless they need like a mid-season cliffhanger or something, and they'll do it for a character. Like, but the opposite can be said about it. Like they always kill them off early, and then oh no, we have to stop it before it happens again, and they manage to just get there in nick of time. Whereas if you look at shows like House and stuff like that, what they do is it's like the person will come in and they're always on the verge of dying, and we were almost going to, and we brought them back, and then we brought them back. Yeah. And you feel, oh my god, like they got to get this person, you know, they got to get them better. So the odd time that someone does die in that, it's more notable. And it's weird because whenever characters have been killed off in shows like CSI or Criminal Minds, I suppose I watch Criminal Minds more than CSI, but like whenever I see someone getting killed off, I'm kind of like, yeah, that's shit. But I'm not necessarily, I don't necessarily care, because I'm like, I expect a certain body count per episode in those things, because they're dealing with serial killers and they're dealing with psychopaths and bombers and terrorists, and you're like, yeah. Whereas in House, they train you to expect this person will be killed, this person will make better, will make it through, will be made better, and then so when it does happen, it's like, you know, and then they always use it as a means for one of the characters to feel like horrendous and then have to deal with it. You as a viewer, you actually sympathize more with the characters, whereas like in Criminal Minds, it's like, you know, oh, we've been stalking this guy for years and he's killed 82 people, he's one of the most prolific guys ever, and you're like, fascinating. And then it's like one of the main characters gets offed by him and you're like, okay. So it's weird. I've noticed it though, there's certain shows where you never even see the crime happening. Law and Order used to do this, where it was a case of they would show up to the crime scene after it happened. They would process the crime scene. You get the detective part and all the rest, and they're interviewing people, and then it switches to the justice part, and they're doing the whole the trial and stuff like that. And even in that, when a character died, you were kind of like, oh shit, because they weren't showing you the thing. And I know it's this whole thing of desensitization. I don't think desensitization turns people. It doesn't turn 99.9% of people into murderers and callous killers and stuff, but it actually fucks with the storytelling capabilities of these shows.
Yeah, I guess it's where they have to have a murder a week. They can't, like, you would get such empathy fatigue if you had to like love the character at the start.
Yeah,
and you're like, they are nearly basically saying we need to get the murder bit over and done with so we can get back to the characters they're actually supposed to care about. And you're like, shouldn't we care about the person who dies? Like, absolutely not.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why in House, it was nearly every episode they would bring someone in and make you care about them, or they'd make you care about them a bit, then go, but this guy's actually kind of an asshole, but you still kind of root for him, don't you? You know, and I think that's where that was a superior show, where it was able to do that. Now I get that it's also the nature of the show, it's the format and how it works, but I just found it was quite an interesting thing when I was looking at this, that it was like a lot of shows, like, main characters only get killed off mid-season or end season. That's the way it happens, and because of that, again, it's this whole thing of like, it's like the drawn out heroic death from the films. You can kind of see it coming. If someone's in danger in episode 3 of a season, you're like, nah, this is fine, where, you know, he might be limping for the next 3 episodes, but whereas if someone is in danger in the halfway point, you're like, this guy could actually get off here, this might happen. Like, so like I said, it was more just the treatment of it than a specific example. I thought was kind of odd.
Talking about House and using death and near death to kind of up the stakes, there is an episode where I think an infant dies near the start of the episode, and he has to say, like, there are other infants showing the same symptoms, and he has to do an autopsy, and it's a really poignant scene of that kind of thing of like, this is a baby, you care about babies, and like, House now has to do an autopsy on a baby to save more babies, and you're like, Jesus, oh man, the stakes are so high.
And
it's incredible.
It's even one of the few times that House actually looks upset about something like that, and it's like, and part of it is that like I never found that out of place for his character, because it's the whole thing of he hates what people turn into. Whereas kids, he seems, every time you see him interact with a kid on the show, he doesn't treat them really like kids, but he'll treat them with the way the kid wants to be treated, and it's usually fine. You know, now he can, like, when he's not in the room with them, he will just say, he'll revert to his clinical self of like, yeah, whatever, just fucking, you know, doesn't matter if we hurt him, we need to fix him. But that moment, that particular one, where he's trying to find what's wrong, it's like that, when he has to do that autopsy, that can be like super crushing, like, and it's weird, like, that show as well also kind of ended with the death of a character. Spoilers, hashtag spoilers, etc. But like, so they did it a couple of times. There was only a handful of main character deaths in House. So end of season 5, they kill off cutthroat bitch Amber, who is Wilson's girlfriend, and she indirectly dies because House was out getting hammered, and Wilson holds it against them and all the rest. But even that scene where, like, she basically, like, she's in a medically induced coma, and they figure out what's wrong with her, and they realize there's no way we're ever going to be able to save her. So they have to, like, Wilson is like almost refusing to let go. They end up having to wake her up to give her time to say goodbye, and everyone comes in one at a time to say goodbye, and half of them don't even know anything to say. And it's like, it's a like if you've been following the series, it's a heartbreaking scene. Like, then you have a season later, Kuttner.
Kuttner, was he the medical student?
Yeah, it's guy played by Cal Penn.
Yes.
So he kills himself. But like, you don't know. There's no preamble to it. And
I think I've talked about that in a previous episode. Yeah, it's. I think it's done really well. I think it's done with
part of it is the whole thing that they don't do the big lead up. They don't do the whole him looking pensive and looking at a bottle of pills and all this type of thing. It was very much just kind of, they were like, where the fuck's Kuttner? And it's like, all right, we'll go around and we'll check on him. And then they find the body. 13 and Foreman find the body, and they freak out, and they're trying to resuscitate him, and they call the ambulance and everything else. And then, like, House has a nervous breakdown eventually as a result of that. That actually came out of nowhere. That was them adapting really well to the writing, because Cal Penn, he left shortly after Obama got elected, and because Obama appointed him to a position in the White House. It was something to do with like a youth and media relations position.
Yeah.
So he brought him in. He's like, guys, I gotta go. I got a job in the White House. And they're like, oh, okay, what series is that? And they're like, no, the White House. And they're like, shit, right, we gotta write you out then.
Yeah.
So that's what, but it actually worked quite well. And then towards the end, towards the second half of season 8, which is the last season, Wilson finds out that he has terminal cancer. And like, there's also a whole thing that happens with House where it looks like he's going to get arrested and sent to prison.
Well,
and he'll be in prison long enough that he won't be there when Wilson dies.
Yeah, and he has to fight Moriarty on a waterfall.
Exactly.
No, I'm thinking something else there. Yeah, but anyway, moving on.
Yeah, but then he ends up like House apparently dies. It's turned out to be faked, but they have his funeral and all the rest. And then it's afterwards, or during the funeral, Wilson finds out that he has faked his death. And he shows up and he starts giving out to him, and he's like, "You're gonna go to jail. You can't fake your own death." And he looks at him and he's like, "Wilson, I'm dead." But it's kind of like, like, I don't have any concerns now. And he's like, "What do you want to do for the rest of your life?" Because they know Wilson only has like 6 months to live. And then it cuts to them riding off on motorcycles to go across the country. And I thought it was like, this, there's a fake death and an implied and an inevitable death at the end of that series, and like that, because they use it sparingly, it really works. Whereas in some TV shows, they're killing off people every second season or every season, and you're like, I don't care.
What did we work out was the Midsummer Murders death rate? If you're between the ages of like 18 and upwards, you're like a 20% mortality rate for any given year. Something
ridiculous. Yeah. But yeah, no, that's just my example. That was just a particular like TV show that or TV show, not a specific example, but the way it's used. Like I said, it was, for me, I was looking at how it's treated and how it's kind of used both in the writing and stuff like that. So
cool. So
that was a cheery episode.
It was.
I don't actually have a story to finish it like I did last time.
Well, I would hope not. Remember that time I died?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the homework for the week, is to figure out which one of us is the dead narrator who's just been
I'm not actually
been narrating this the whole time,
afterlife,
but died during episode 1. Cool. Do you want to do homework on your side?
Yeah, just the only real one specifically I would say is To the Moon. The game To the Moon. It's on Steam. Like I said, you can get it for anywhere between, I think it's €8, $10. But during the sale, it'll go down as low as 2. And it's like, even just stick it on your wish list, and then when it shows up, I'd pick it up. It's a very good game. Very, very good game.
My homework is to watch Collateral. I would recommend anyone to watch Harold and Maude. It's up on Netflix. It is a delightful movie from the 70s. A little bit slow moving, but it'll warm your cockles. Games, Edith Finch, same as that. It's a nice little indie movie or indie game. Recommend it to play something different than whatever you're playing at the moment, because it's cool. And if you want to get that little bit of teary eye, like you don't have a full cry, but you feel the water, and if you blink it would be, just watch that last bit of Scrubs where it's everything from Dr. Cox and Ben approaching that final scene. Yeah, watching earlier, just had that little thing of like, I'm
not crying, shut up. Or actually, that's another TV series that, like, it's perfectly acceptable to. It's like, I always joke about that stupid thing of like, men don't cry.
Yes.
And I'm like, no, there's 10 things you're allowed to cry at, and it's like, if you step on an upturned plug or Lego, when your first kid is born, when Terminator gets lowered into the molten steel. That episode of Scrubs, the ending of Band of Brothers.
Yep.
When they're all talking, when you get the montage and they're playing baseball, you get the montage of what happened to them all, and then it does the interview with them where it finally reveals the names of who has been talking and commenting at the start and end of every episode, and it's like, and they're all really emotional, and then you're like, hold it together, and then you know what I mean, like that whole. Yeah, I think it's stupid. You can fucking cry when you want, man. I hate that whole thing of like, men don't cry. It's just fucking kick you in the bollocks, you'll cry, watch.
I told you that story of me being so hungover one day, so ridiculously hungover, that I just went into the little centre next to me, and Landslide by Fleetwood Mac came on the radio, and I got so fucking emotional. I got up to the counter, and I had like tears streaming down my face, and I was like holding my chicken fillet roll out to them, and the guy was just like, "Just take it, man." You're like, it's just, you clearly need this a lot more than I know. Just take it, man. Thank you. And then, fumbling for change, just walked out. I had to come back later and pay them. Oh man.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys.
Absolutely.
We'll hopefully have a more cheerful episode next time.